Let's look at another example. This is an example from a study of grade 8 students who were tested in school, and they were tested or surveyed about their interest in school. Did they have a high, a middle, or a low interest in school? And they also were classified according to whether they were problem readers or normal readers. So what you see on the left there is the fact that interest and reading are correlated. The chi-square is significant, and you can see that the higher your interest, in fact, less likely you are to be a problem reader. That 45% of the high-interest students are normal readers, while only 22% of the low-interest students are problem readers. Slightly misspelled there, loc instead of low. And over on the right, we see the two correlations of the variable here's outcome, because these students were looked at again 4 years later, and the question was, had they stayed in school? So it's a rather high dropout rate at this time in this jurisdiction. And what we find is that whether students were problem readers or normal readers was in fact influential of whether they later became dropouts. So the problem readers were likely with a possibility of 26% of being dropouts, and the normal readers only 16%. We also see an effect in the bottom table here that the students who had higher interests were much likely to be staying in. 90% of the high interest students stayed in, while only 64% of the low interest students stayed in. And that's a significant effect. Both of these are very significant effects, 0.001, 0.000. So we can say that reading affects outcome. We can say that interest affects outcome. But now we look to see whether the effect of interest on outcome is present at each level of reading, of problem or normal reading. This is a three-way table. We've controlled the interest tabulation, which is high, middle, low, compared to outcome, dropout, and stay in. And the topmost table there is for problem readers, and the next one down is for normal readers. And what you can see descriptively is that the interest influence is present for both problem readers and normal readers, maybe at somewhat different levels. But you can see that the high interest students in both the problem and the non-problem cases have a very low probability of dropping out, 9%, 9.8%, 10.2%. And the ones who are low interest have a high probability of higher probability of dropping out, even if they're normal readers, 28%, 38%, somewhat higher there if you have both strikes against you. Both of these tables, the top table and the bottom table, show significant chi-squares, which is to say that the effect of interest on outcome, on the outcome of dropping out, is the same, or is preserved for each level of reading. Now I'm going to turn this table around and say, or this three-way tabulation around, and I say, what is the effect that reading has, that being a problem reader or not, has on dropout at each level of interest, high, middle, and low? So now I have three tables at the top. The three tables are for high, for middle, and for low. Each one shows the relationship between reading and outcome. And what you find is that there's not much of an effect of reading on outcome once you're looking within the group of high interest students. So 9.8% dropout, 10.2% dropout. There's not a lot of effect there. And similarly for middle interest students, there is a slight difference, but not very much, between their likelihood of dropping out, depending on whether they're a problem or non-problem reading. And the low interest students are not exactly the same again, but there's an effect there that is not very big. And in fact, what we look down below, we find that these three tables are not significant in terms of their chi-squares. The chi-square effects are non-significant, and probability of 0.1, so it's not really significant in that third case either. So what we've established is that the effect of reading on outcome is diminished, is non-significant at the different levels of interest. And that gives us a hint, at least. The causal direction here is that interest may correlate with reading, but it's interest that is determining, in fact, the dropout rate later. In this case, we can make that kind of conclusion. At least we can say that outcome is mainly a consequence of the effect of interest. And the initial correlation of reading with outcome was an effect of, or a combination of the effect of interest and the correlation that reading had with interest. And I just want to conclude by saying there's a limitation here. The chi-square that we're looking at is affected by the sizes of the differences, that is to say the percentage distribution as they vary, but also by the sizes of the samples. And when you start making breakdowns of your sample into smaller and smaller groups, you can expect that the effects that you're seeing will disappear just because of power. The chi-square won't be powerful enough to detect the differences that are there. So you have to watch out for that, but this is a general purpose way of looking for causality in tables using three-way tabulations. And that's the conclusion of this PowerPoint.